If one group of Americans prefers government to control and manage other people's lives, and another group of Americans prefer liberty and they have a desire to be left alone, should these two groups be forced to fight one another, antagonize one another, risk bloodshed, loss of life, in order to impose their preferences, or should they be able to peaceably part company and go their separate ways? Now, I feel that the problem our nation faces is very much like that of a marriage, where one partner, rather, has broken and has no intention of keeping the marital vows. Now, of course, the marriage can remain intact, and one party tries to impose his will on the other, engage in devious behavior, or one party just be submissive or subject themselves to domestic violence. I think a more reasonable alternative is separation. Just get divorced. Now, I believe that we're nearing a point in America where there are enough irreconcilable differences between those Americans who want to control other Americans and those Americans who want to be left alone, that separation is looking like the only peaceable alternative. And just as in marriage where vows are broken, our human rights protections guaranteed by the United States Constitution have been grossly violated by a government that was instituted to protect them. The Democrat-controlled Washington is simply just an escalation of a process that has been in full stride for at least 2 or 3 decades. And there's, for me, and I'd like to be corrected on this, there's no evidence that Americans who are responsible for and support the abrogation of our Constitution have any intention of mending their ways. I don't see any evidence whatsoever. Now, so you say, well, Williams, what do you mean by constitutional abrogation? Well, just read the Constitution. Look at some of the magnitude of the violations, and if you look at Article 1, Section 8 of the United States Constitution, it lists the activities for which Congress can tax and spend for. And nowhere on that list is authority for Congress to tax and spend for prescription drugs, Social Security, public education, farm subsidies, bank bailouts, business bailouts, food stamps, and other activities that represent about 2/3 of all that Congress spends money on. The Constitution of the United States would have never been ratified if the states did not believe that they could just secede. Now, keep in mind that a little bit of the history here, that in 1783, the Treaty of Paris was written that ended the war between the colonies and Great Britain. And if you read the Treaty of Paris, it says that there are 13 sovereign nations. These are 13 sovereign nations, and they came together as principals and made the federal government their agent. And principals can always fire agents. Now, but see, a lot of Americans, they say, well, Williams, all these things you disagree with, well, you recognize, you have to recognize that we are a democracy and majority rules. Well, first, I try to tell that person, the founders did not intend for us to be a democracy. Matter of fact, they found the idea of democracy utterly offensive. And if you read the writings of John Adams, Madison, Jefferson, they talk about a democracy leading to failure. They wanted a republic. When we pledge allegiance to the flag, do we pledge allegiance for the democracy for which it stands? Do we sing the battle hymn of the democracy? That is, the founders, matter of fact, in our founding documents, you don't even find the word democracy. And majority rule is just tyranny of the majority. It's nothing more than tyranny. I mean, here's a question for those of you who don't believe me. Well, question. Suppose we have two alternatives for Thanksgiving dinner. We can have ham or we can have turkey. How would you like for that to be decided by a majority rule? That is, the majority says, okay, we're going to have turkey and ham is illegal. You find that offensive. Matter of if we said, well, the majority is going to decide what kind of cars we're going to buy, you find that offensive. So why isn't it also offensive that a majority is going to decide what kind of medical care you're going to have or how we should use our property? That should be offensive as well.